Assalamu alaikum teachers and welcome to this explainer. If you're stepping into a classroom every day, guiding that next generation, you already know teaching is, well, it's equal parts art and science, right? Today, we're going to unpack the absolute ultimate guide to teaching methods. We're pulling directly from some really fantastic, grounded educational sources meant specifically for educators, B.Ed students, and those of you prepping for your teaching licenses. We're going to look at exactly how to transfer what's in your head into your students' heads in the most effective way possible. Let's get right into it.
But hey, before we dive into the heavy theory, I want to ask you something directly. Be totally honest with yourself here. Are your students mostly bored, or are they actually excited? If your answer leans toward bored, please don't stress. You're absolutely not alone in that. Keeping a room full of students locked in and engaged, it's honestly one of the toughest everyday challenges of being a teacher.
Okay, let's dive into this. On one side, we have the universal symbol of a disengaged classroom. Yep, the sleeping student. And on the other, that spark we all desperately want to see. So, what bridges the gap here? It's your teaching method. A truly great teaching method takes the driest, most difficult topic and halva bana deta hai. It makes it so easy. If you're a B.Ed student or getting ready for your licensing exams, understanding how to shift your classroom from that first scenario to the second is a complete, literal game changer.
I want you to pause for just a second. Here's your first action point for today. Think back to your absolute favorite teacher from when you were a student. Got 'em? Now, what exactly made them so great? Did they just stand there reading off a textbook, or did they actually make you feel involved? Hold on to that memory as we keep going, because we're going to reverse engineer exactly what made them so effective.
All right, moving into our first major area, teacher-centered versus student-centered learning. When we break down these two opposing worlds, the differences are pretty striking. In the teacher-centered approach, the focus is entirely on, well, the teacher. The teacher talks, the students listen in silence. The pace is super fast, which sure is great for rushing through a strict syllabus, and the environment stays very quiet and disciplined. But the catch? Students zone out. Now flip that to the student-centered approach. Here, the student is the hero. The focus shifts entirely to participation and discovery. The pace might feel a little slower, and yeah, the room can get pretty active, maybe even a bit noisy. But here's the crucial takeaway. While the traditional method blasts through the syllabus, this student-centered method actually builds real confidence and incredibly solid, deep learning that sticks.
Let me share a real classroom story from our source material that hits the nail on the head. Imagine a science teacher doing a super strict, teacher-centered lecture on the parts of a plant. They're up there writing on the board, talking nonstop. The result? Half the class is literally asleep. Now next door, another teacher uses a student-centered style. They bring actual physical plants into the classroom, hand them out to small groups, and ask the kids to identify the parts themselves. Was it noisier? For sure. But those kids were up, they were excited, and they learned the concept perfectly without just mindlessly copying notes.
So how can you apply this immediately? Try doing a simple 5-minute turn and talk in your very next class. Just ask your students to turn to their desk partner and explain a concept you just taught. That's it. It instantly shifts the energy from teacher-centered to student-centered. It's quick, it's super easy, and trust me, it works every single time.
Okay, that brings us to our next big section, active teaching strategies.
Let's look at two absolute core strategies you need in your toolkit. First up, effective questioning. Guys, there's a real art to asking questions. You've got closed questions, the ones that just need a basic yes or no, like, is the sky blue? Those are fine, but they don't exactly spark deep thought, do they? Then you have open questions, like, why do you think the sky appears blue? Do you see the difference? Open questions force students to actually process and think. The second strategy is cooperative learning, or group work, which is honestly one of the fastest ways to build teamwork skills and lock in that deeper understanding.
Now, you might be thinking, how do I actually do group work in my specific subject? It's way easier than you think. In science, have small groups draw and label a water cycle chart together. In language classes, whether we're talking English, Urdu, Sindhi, whatever, have a group read a poem together, debate it, and agree on its meaning before presenting it to the class. In math, hand them a really tough problem and tell the group to figure it out as a team. Just like that, you're transforming passive listeners into highly active participants.
Let's do some rapid-fire tips. Here are 3 highly practical things you can do today. Number 1, always start your class with an interesting story or a compelling question to hook them right away. Number 2, build in 15-minute discussion breaks. Literally, stop talking every 15 minutes and let them discuss what you just covered with a neighbor.
And number 3, and this one is absolutely vital, when a student makes a mistake, guide them to the right answer instead of scolding them. You want to be a facilitator, not a dictator, right?
Which brings us to our next action point. I'm challenging you to ask this specific, open-ended question in your class today. If you were the author of this story, how would you end it? Just try it. Watch how it completely sparks their imaginations. You'll see how a simple shift in phrasing changes the entire energy of the room.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we're going to talk about next, Bloom's ladder of learning.
So this 6-step ladder shows how learning actually evolves in the brain. Let's walk up these steps using that plants example from earlier. The very bottom step is remember. This is just basic memorization, like knowing the words roots, stem, leaf. Step 2 is understand. Okay, now they can actually explain what a root does. Step 3 is apply. They know exactly where to pour the water when they're watering a plant. Step 4, analyze. They can compare 2 different plants and spot the differences. Step 5 is evaluate. They can look at a dying plant and judge why it's wilting, whether it needs water or sunlight. And finally, the highest step, create. The student actually designs and plants a mini garden of their own. As a teacher, your ultimate goal is to pull your students up from just remembering at the bottom, all the way to creating at the absolute top.
And look, this isn't just some nice-to-have pie-in-the-sky theory. It's a professional requirement. For our educators in Pakistan, the National Professional Standards for Teachers, or NPST, outlines exactly what a competent teacher needs to know. Standard 3 specifically demands proficiency in instructional planning and strategies. It explicitly states that you must know multiple teaching methods so you can actually reach every single type of student sitting in your classroom.
So, to scaffold this theory into reality, here's your next action step. The next time you're writing an assessment or a test, design at least one question that requires your students to create or evaluate. Push them up Bloom's ladder. Don't just ask them to regurgitate memorized facts. Make them really use what they've learned. All right, we've reached the final section of our explainer, the ultimate teaching challenge.
I have a direct challenge for every focused learner watching this right now. I want you to try just one student-centered activity in your very next class. It does not have to be a massive, chaotic project. Even a 5-minute activity, like that turn and talk we discussed, totally counts. Step out of that traditional comfort zone, hand the power over to your students for just a few minutes, and just observe the difference in their engagement. You'll be amazed.
I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful quote from our source material. Listen to this. आपसे syllabus cover नहीं करवा रहे, आप एक generation को तैयार कर रहे हैं. You are shaping the future. Honestly, never forget the immense power you hold. Your hard work, your choice to use an engaging teaching method, it can literally change the trajectory of a child's entire life.
Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. If you want to dive deeper into this, definitely check out the NPST guidelines and Anderson and Kraft-Wool's Taxonomy. Keep experimenting, keep pushing the boundaries. But as you walk into your classroom tomorrow morning, I want you to ask yourself one final question. Are you just filling time, or are you shaping a mind?